AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's friend stay at my house after he got kicked out of college. So this is going to be long, and honestly, I still don't fully know if I'm being unreasonable, so I'm here for some outside perspective. I, 22F, recently graduated from college and have been living on my own for the past year. I work full-time, and things have been going okay financially, but I'm definitely not rolling in money. My younger brother, let's call him Ryan, 19M, has always been a little wild. He's smart and funny, but he struggles with responsibility and keeping a schedule. He went to college about 200 miles away from where I live, and until recently, we had a decent sibling relationship. Here's where things get messy. Ryan got kicked out of college last month due to failing too many classes and skipping his required meetings with the academic advisor. The school gave him the option to appeal or transfer, but he decided he wanted to take a break and figure things out. He immediately called me crying, saying he had nowhere to go and needed a place to stay. I was shocked and honestly a little frustrated because while I love my brother, I work full-time and have my own life. I told him I could let him stay for a week while he figured out his next steps, but I couldn't take him in indefinitely. Ryan agreed at first, but things escalated quickly. Within a couple of days, he started inviting his friends over. Not just one or two, but a small group of 3 to 4 guys who he said needed a place to crash for a few days because their apartments were being fumigated, they were between leases, or some other excuse every day. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable having multiple people in my apartment, and I certainly didn't have room or resources for them. He said I was being selfish and that we should all live together and it would be fun, and that his friends were family too. I explained that it wasn't about them personally, but I couldn't afford to feed and accommodate 5 people in my apartment, nor did I have space. I also work early mornings, and having extra people around was affecting my sleep and productivity. Ryan started sulking and accusing me of being mean and unsupportive. The next day, he brought over 2 of his friends anyway while I was at work. When I came home, my living room was full, and they were playing video games, eating my food, and leaving garbage everywhere. I asked them to leave politely, explaining that they were not invited. Ryan got defensive and said I didn't understand the struggle of being 19 and that I should let people help each other. Things got worse. One of his friends left a broken chair in my living room, spilled a soda on my carpet, and I found that someone had used my expensive coffee machine without asking. I confronted Ryan, and he got angry, saying I was being uptight and that I didn't care about him or his friends. He said I was like a parent trying to control everything and stormed out for a few hours. He returned later and begged me to forgive him, promising nothing like that would happen again. I agreed, but set very clear rules. His friends were not allowed over under any circumstances. Last weekend, he had another friend stay the night without asking. This time I snapped. I told Ryan that if anyone else stayed over, he would have to leave. I offered him alternative solutions. He could rent a room nearby, stay with our parents temporarily, or even get a cheap Airbnb until he figured out his next move. He accused me of kicking him out and not caring about him, saying I had turned into a heartless adult. Now my parents are involved. They say I should let him figure things out under my roof, and that I'm being too harsh because Ryan is in a vulnerable position. I understand their point, but I feel like I've already gone above and beyond. I let him stay for a week, gave him guidance, and set clear boundaries. He's repeatedly ignored them. I'm also stressed because I'm worried about my job, my apartment, and my mental health. Friends I've talked to are split. Some say I should tough it out and let him and his friends stay for a while because he's family. Others say I'm right to enforce boundaries and that letting him bring multiple uninvited guests over is a huge violation of trust. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's friend stay at my apartment after he got kicked out of college. I genuinely want to help him, but I also feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I've considered just asking him to stay with our parents instead, but he's adamant that he doesn't want to burden them. I feel stuck between wanting to support my brother and needing to protect my space, sanity, and finances. I just don't know if I'm being unreasonable. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her partner's behavior? So, a little context first. I, 17F, have always been very close to my older sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, she was my role model, the person I went to for advice, and my biggest supporter. Our relationship has always been strong, despite the age gap. Emily has always had a somewhat impulsive nature when it comes to men, but I usually stayed out of it because it was her life. A few months ago, Emily started dating someone named Jason, 27M. At first, I didn't think much of it. I hadn't met him yet, and Emily seemed happy, which was all I cared about. However, once I met him at a small family dinner, things started to feel off. Jason immediately gave me a weird vibe. He was polite on the surface, but had this condescending tone that felt like he was constantly judging me. I brushed it off, thinking I was overreacting, but other subtle things started adding up over the next few months. One example is during Emily's birthday dinner. I had made her a handmade gift, something I'd spent hours on. When I handed it to her, Jason immediately commented, "You could have bought her something nicer. That looks cheap." Everyone at the table looked uncomfortable, and Emily just laughed nervously. I told him quietly that it was handmade and heartfelt, but he shrugged it off. It was a small comment, but it hurt. I started noticing more moments like that, where he made snide remarks or belittled me or other family members. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, Emily announced that she and Jason were engaged. I tried to be happy for her, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that this relationship wasn't healthy. I voiced my concerns to my mom privately, explaining some of the things I'd observed. My mom was dismissive and said, "Emily is grown, and you need to respect her choices. If she wants to be with him, that's on her." I understood her point, but I also felt strongly that I couldn't ignore the way Jason treated me, and from what I'd heard from other family members, some of Emily's friends as well. When Emily asked me to help with wedding planning, I tried to stay involved, but only from a distance. I didn't want to spend extended periods around Jason, so I limited my participation to sending RSVPs, helping with small DIY projects that could be done at home, and offering advice over text. Emily seemed a little hurt, but accepted it at the time. Things came to a head last week. Emily called me crying and saying that Jason had been getting upset because I'm not supportive enough and that he felt like I was trying to create tension. Apparently, during one of the family gatherings, I had made a neutral comment about table arrangements, and Jason snapped at me in front of everyone, saying, "You're only here to cause problems. Maybe you should just stay home." Everyone was stunned, and Emily apologized to me later, saying she wished he hadn't said that. I tried talking to Emily calmly, explaining that it wasn't about her. It was about Jason's behavior and how it made me feel unwelcome and disrespected. I said that if things didn't change, I couldn't in good conscience attend the wedding. Emily got angry and accused me of trying to ruin her big day. She said, "He's my fiancé. You can't just decide not to come because you don't like him. That's selfish and immature." I tried to reason with her, telling her that it's not about being selfish. I genuinely want her to be happy, but I also can't ignore feeling unsafe and demeaned around Jason. She hasn't responded much since our conversation, but my mom called me and said I was being dramatic and that I should just go to the wedding for Emily's sake. I'm torn because I really love my sister and I don't want to hurt her. But at the same time, I've experienced firsthand how Jason treats people he's supposed to care about, and I don't want to subject myself to that. I considered going but staying away from Jason as much as possible, but I know it will be difficult because he's her fiancé and will be all over the wedding. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my sister I might not attend her wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I feel like I'm caught between my loyalty to my sister and my own emotional boundaries. I don't want to make her miserable on her big day, but I also don't want to feel like I'm sacrificing my self-respect and mental well-being just to be present. Has anyone else been in a situation where a sibling's partner was toxic, but the sibling couldn't see it? How do you navigate family events in situations like this? I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and the last thing I want is to be seen as the villain in my own family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 25F, have been close with my sister, 28F, my entire life. We've shared everything from childhood secrets to adult milestones, and I've always considered her my best friend. Our parents divorced when we were young, and we've always been each other's primary support system. My sister has always been independent and strong-willed, but I've always respected that and never tried to control her life. That said, I've recently been in a situation that's caused major tension between us, and I need an outsider perspective because I'm starting to wonder if I'm being unreasonable. My sister got engaged about 6 months ago to her boyfriend. Let's call him Derek, 30M. I met Derek a few times before the engagement, and while I didn't have any immediate red flags, I never really felt comfortable around him. He seemed controlling in subtle ways, often talking over my sister in conversations or making jokes that seemed more like jabs. At the time, I chalked it up to first impressions and gave him the benefit of the doubt. After they got engaged, I tried to support her in wedding planning. I helped her pick out venues, dresses, and even helped organize the guest list. However, things started to get strange once the actual planning got serious. Derek began dictating small details that didn't seem to matter much to my sister, but obviously mattered to him, like the color of napkins, the songs played during the reception, and the exact timing of events. I noticed my sister becoming more stressed and anxious around him, and I tried to be supportive without interfering. A couple of months into planning, Derek's behavior escalated in ways I couldn't ignore. During a family dinner at my place, he made a comment about how your family's house is too small for the wedding in front of everyone, even though it had been discussed that we wouldn't host the ceremony there. When my sister laughed it off, he went on to say, "It's just going to be more convenient for everyone if we do it my way." It was dismissive and controlling, and it made me really uncomfortable. I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to cause a scene, but my sister looked uneasy. Things got worse as the months went on. Derek began making snide comments about my family, my friends, and even my sister's closest friends. During one planning session, he openly criticized my mother's input on the guest list, saying things like, "Your mom doesn't know what she's talking about, and we're adults. We should make the decisions ourselves." My sister didn't defend her mom, which surprised me because she usually has a strong sense of loyalty to family. I tried talking to my sister privately about it, saying that Derek's behavior seemed controlling and that it was okay to set boundaries. She told me I was overreacting and that he just has a strong personality and that I should trust her judgment. The final straw for me happened last week. My sister and I were at a dress fitting for her bridesmaids. Derek came with her and immediately started criticizing everything about the dresses, the color, the length, even the style of the shoes. He made my sister cry because he insisted that her vision of the wedding was wrong. I tried to intervene gently, suggesting that maybe we could compromise or find a way to adjust things without anyone being upset, but Derek snapped at me, saying, "Why are you even here? This isn't about you." My sister didn't defend me, and I felt humiliated in front of the seamstress and the other bridesmaids. After that incident, I sat down with my sister and told her that I couldn't continue being involved in the wedding if Derek was going to treat me, and by extension my family, this way. I told her that I loved her, and I wanted her to be happy, but I couldn't support a relationship that made her miserable or allowed someone to treat the people she loves so poorly. She cried and begged me not to pull away, but I stayed firm. Yesterday, she called to tell me that she's officially inviting everyone except me because she can't risk a scene and that Derek doesn't want me there. I was heartbroken, and I tried to reason with her, explaining that my refusal to attend was a response to Derek's behavior, not an attempt to hurt her. She accused me of being dramatic and said that I'm ruining our relationship over a wedding. Our parents are torn. They understand my concerns, but also feel pressure by my sister's insistence that I attend. My friends are split as well. Some say I should put my feelings aside for my sister's big day, while others say I'm justified in protecting myself from someone who treats me badly. I feel like I'm stuck in an impossible situation. On one hand, I love my sister and I don't want to miss such a significant moment in her life. On the other hand, Derek's behavior has been consistently toxic, and I cannot condone it by being present. I've tried talking to my sister multiple times, but she refuses to see how unhealthy his behavior is. I feel guilty for possibly creating a rift in our relationship, but I also feel like attending would betray my own sense of self-respect. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to help my brother financially after he pressured me to choose family over logic. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 27F, have a younger brother, Jake, 23M, and our relationship has always been complicated. Growing up, he was a bit of a free spirit and never really cared about responsibilities. I, on the other hand, was more disciplined and have been working steadily since I graduated college. I live in a small city, rent my own place, and manage to save a decent amount every month. A few months ago, Jake called me in a panic. He had been living on his own since he turned 21, but his spending habits were, let's say, questionable. Apparently, he had racked up a significant amount of credit card debt and got evicted because he couldn't pay rent. He called me crying, saying he had nowhere to go and no money to get back on his feet. Now, I have always helped Jake in smaller ways. I've lent him money before, usually amounts like $100 to $200 for emergencies, and I didn't mind because I knew he would pay me back. But this time, he wanted me to give him $5,000 so he could secure a new apartment and pay off part of his debts. I was taken aback. I don't make an enormous salary, and $5,000 is a big chunk of my savings. I told him I couldn't just give him that kind of money without some plan in place. I suggested a few alternatives: contacting his creditors to negotiate a payment plan, looking into local assistance programs for rent, borrowing from a bank or a legitimate loan service that doesn't put my finances at risk. Jake didn't like that answer. He got angry and started saying things like, "You're my sister. Family helps each other. I can't believe you'd choose money over me." He said I was being selfish and implied that if I didn't help, our relationship would be damaged. I tried to explain that helping him in this way would put me in a very difficult position and that I was willing to help in other ways, like helping him budget or co-sign a small loan if he got a proper repayment plan. He didn't want to hear it. After that call, I felt terrible because I hate seeing him struggle, but at the same time, I know that giving him $5,000 with no strings attached would be irresponsible for me. I even thought about borrowing money from my parents to help him, but my parents outright refused. They've struggled to get him to manage money responsibly for years and didn't want to enable his behavior. Fast forward a few weeks, Jake moved in temporarily with a friend, which I guess helped him survive for a little while. But then he started posting all these vague social media updates about being let down by family and how some people care more about money than blood. I got a lot of texts from mutual friends asking why I wouldn't help, and I just feel exhausted explaining myself over and over. Recently, he came to me again, asking for just $1,500 as a compromise. He promised it would be the last time. I felt like if I gave him this money, it would just reinforce the idea that he could keep asking without any real accountability. I ended up telling him no again, but I also offered to help him make a strict budget, apply for jobs that paid better, and even offered to temporarily store some of his belongings so he didn't have to pay for storage. He didn't respond well, got frustrated, and accused me of abandoning him. Here's the part where my family started getting involved. My mom called me crying, saying I was hurting Jake and that I should just give him the money. My dad was slightly more understanding, saying they didn't want to get involved financially either, but they thought I should consider what family means. I explained to both of them that helping Jake financially without a plan wouldn't actually help him long-term and would put me in a difficult spot, but they think I'm overthinking it. Jake has since stopped talking to me directly, but he still posts subtle jabs on social media, which makes me feel guilty. Some of my friends have told me that I'm being reasonable, that enabling bad financial habits isn't helping anyone. Others say I'm being cold, and that family should always come first. I'm torn because I love my brother, but I also feel like I have a responsibility to myself and my future. I know some people might say I could have done more, or that I should have helped even if it hurt me financially, but I also believe that teaching someone accountability is part of being a good sibling. I've offered other forms of support, like helping him find work, budget, or even help with applications for assistance, but apparently none of that counts. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my brother thousands of dollars when he asked for it, even though he's struggling and my family thinks I'm being selfish. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior. I, 27F, have a younger brother, Jake, 24M, who has always been the kind of person everyone wants to be around. He's charming, funny, and generally easygoing, and growing up we were really close. We fought sometimes like most siblings do, but we were tight, and I've always been protective of him. About a year ago, he started dating someone new, Samantha, 25F, and things have been complicated. From the beginning, I noticed things that didn't sit right with me. Samantha is outwardly very sweet, very friendly, but there was something about the way she interacted with my family that rubbed me the wrong way. She's very controlling in subtle ways and seems to enjoy putting people in awkward positions. For example, when we first met, she asked me if I would give her my car for a few hours just to run errands, even though she knew I had plans. When I said no, she smiled sweetly and then loudly told everyone, well, some people are just so unhelpful, which was uncomfortable for everyone. It felt like a small power play. Despite this, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. My parents and I thought maybe it was just her being shy or awkward, so I tried to interact normally with her. Over time, however, more incidents piled up. She criticized my cooking at family dinners, complained about how my parents run their household, and once even told me that my dog was too dumb to be cute. I brushed it off and tried to stay polite because I didn't want to create tension for my brother. About 6 months ago, Jake proposed to Samantha. I was happy for him, but then the planning started, and that's when the problems became impossible to ignore. Jake initially said he wanted a small family and friends wedding, but Samantha insisted on a large venue and over-the-top decorations. She became extremely rigid about the guest list. People who have known Jake since childhood but didn't immediately click with her were not appropriate for the wedding. Cousins, family friends, and even one of Jake's closest college friends were excluded, and when my parents tried to politely negotiate, she basically ignored them. The last straw for me happened at the bridal shower. Samantha made all the guests write expectations for the bride in a notebook she had set up and then read them aloud in a kind of judgmental way. She also made me do a trivia game about her life, but deliberately asked questions she knew I couldn't answer, then laughed in front of everyone when I got them wrong. My parents and even Jake seemed uncomfortable, but no one said anything because they didn't want to ruin the fun. At that point, I felt humiliated and started questioning whether I wanted to be part of her wedding at all. I tried to talk to Jake privately about my feelings. I said that I felt disrespected and uncomfortable around Samantha, that her behavior at family events often felt manipulative, and that I didn't want to pretend everything was fine if it wasn't. Jake didn't deny any of it. He said, I know she can be a bit much sometimes, but I love her and I don't want you to let little things ruin our relationship. I told him it wasn't little things, it was repeated behavior that made me anxious and hurt. He didn't really respond, just said, I think you should try to be there for me on my wedding day. Over the next few weeks, Samantha's behavior escalated. She started sending me passive-aggressive texts, including things like, I hope you're planning to wear something flattering at the wedding, and I know you don't get invited to many bridal parties, so I hope you enjoy this one. I showed these texts to Jake, and he said I was overreacting and that she was just joking. I tried to let it go, but every interaction left me feeling more anxious. Finally, about a month before the wedding, she sent an email to my parents and me with a detailed seating chart. In it, she had placed me at a table with people she assumed I didn't know well and even made a note. This table is perfect for those who might not enjoy the party otherwise. It felt like an insult disguised as organization. At that point, I realized I couldn't participate in good conscience. I told Jake that I wouldn't attend the wedding. I said I loved him, I wanted to support him, but I could not spend his wedding day being mocked and made to feel unwelcome by someone I felt was manipulating everyone around her. Jake exploded. He said I was being selfish and ruining his special day. He accused me of trying to control who he married and said he couldn't believe I would abandon him over a few jokes. My parents were upset too, though more quietly. They think I should at least be there for the moment, even if I had issues with Samantha. Extended family has taken sides too. Some think I'm justified, while others think I'm overreacting and being dramatic. Since I made my decision, I've been getting messages from Samantha that are increasingly nasty, ranging from guilt-tripping to outright insults. I'm blocked from some group chats for wedding planning, which is fine by me, but it feels like a lot of people are viewing me as the villain for standing my ground. Jake and I haven't spoken much since, and my parents are sad about the rift. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of how Samantha has treated me and my family. I feel like I'm protecting my mental health, but everyone else thinks I'm being dramatic and selfish. AITA for confronting my cousin about her parenting after she humiliated me at a family gathering. I, 16M, have always had a complicated relationship with my extended family, mostly because my cousin, Sarah, 17F, has always been a bit overbearing. Sarah and I grew up together, and while we had some fun memories, as we got older, she developed this attitude of superiority that really started to annoy me. I know that sounds harsh, but it's like she has to prove she's better at everything: school, sports, social life, even how she behaves around family. So a little context: our extended family is big, and we gather at my grandparents' house about once a month. It's usually loud and chaotic, but everyone is polite. Sarah, however, has a habit of turning normal conversations into competitions. Last month's gathering was when things really escalated. My grandparents invited everyone for lunch, and I was chatting with my younger cousins about a new video game I was really into. I was showing them some tips when Sarah decided to butt in. She started loudly criticizing my gaming skills in front of everyone, saying I was so bad it was embarrassing, and then laughed at me. I tried to brush it off, but it was humiliating, especially because everyone was watching. After that, I went to the kitchen to get some water, and she followed me, continuing to make snide remarks. At some point, she mentioned that my parents let me do too much and implied that I had no discipline because I spend too much time on games instead of productive activities. I snapped and told her she had no right to talk about my family like that. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting and that it was all in good fun. I didn't say anything further at the gathering, but I couldn't let it go. The next day, I messaged her privately. I told her that I didn't appreciate her humiliating me in front of everyone and that her comments about my parents were completely uncalled for. I tried to keep it calm, but I was firm. Her response completely shocked me. She accused me of being too sensitive and said she was just joking and that I should toughen up. She also said that she's older and has more life experience, so she has a right to point out things I should improve. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I replied saying that joking about someone's abilities or family in a public setting isn't harmless, and that being older doesn't give her the right to insult me or my parents. I also mentioned that I felt her behavior was controlling and manipulative, and if she wanted to continue our relationship, she needed to respect boundaries. She didn't reply after that, and the next family gathering was awkward. When I arrived, my aunt, her mom, pulled me aside and said I had hurt Sarah's feelings and that I needed to apologize. I explained the situation from my perspective and said I wasn't going to apologize for standing up for myself. My aunt sighed and said I was being too dramatic and that family should just get along. During the lunch, Sarah made a few passive-aggressive comments, but I ignored them. Later, my grandparents asked me what was going on, and I told them honestly about how Sarah had humiliated me. Surprisingly, my grandparents seemed to understand and said I was justified in standing up for myself, but warned me to try and keep peace in the family. After the gathering, several cousins reached out privately, saying that Sarah could be really overbearing and that I wasn't the only one who has felt humiliated by her in the past. That made me feel a bit better, but I'm still unsure if I overreacted. I know I could have just ignored her at the gathering, but I feel like letting her insult me in front of everyone would have been worse. I also feel like it's important to set boundaries, especially with family who think they can get away with being hurtful because they're just joking. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my cousin about her behavior and refusing to apologize, even though it made family gatherings awkward. I feel like I was standing up for myself, but my aunt and some relatives think I should have just taken it and let it slide. I really don't want this to turn into a bigger family feud, but I also don't want to be treated like I have no voice in my own family. Have I handled this the wrong way? Or was I justified in defending myself? AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend stay in our house, even though she claims she deserves it more than me. This is going to be long, but I feel like I need to explain everything because people in my family are taking sides and I can't figure out if I'm actually in the wrong. I, 17F, live with my parents and my younger brother, Ben, 15M. We have a pretty normal family dynamic most of the time, but recently things have escalated in a way that's making me question if I'm being unreasonable. So a bit of background. Ben has been dating this girl, Claire, for about 6 months. She's 2 years older than him, so 17, and attends a private school that's a bit of a hassle because her parents live out of state. She's generally nice, I guess, but she's very insistent about her needs, and she's used to people bending over backwards for her. It all started a few weeks ago when Ben mentioned that Claire might want to stay over at our house for a weekend. He phrased it casually like, "Hey, maybe Claire could come over this weekend?" And I jokingly said, "Yeah, right? She doesn't live here. She can figure out her own arrangements." He laughed and didn't push it, but later that evening, my mom casually mentioned it to me in passing and asked how I felt about it. I said I wasn't super comfortable because it's my space too, and she agreed to leave it up to me, which I thought was fair. Fast forward a few days, Claire actually texts me directly, asking if she can stay over for a weekend. She explains that her parents are going out of town, and she doesn't want to spend the weekend alone. I responded politely but firmly, saying that I didn't feel comfortable with her staying over at our house, especially without prior discussion with our parents, and considering it's still technically our home, not hers. This is where things started to spiral. Claire then sends a long message about how she deserves to stay over because she has no one else to go to, and that she feels unwelcome anywhere else. She said that my parents wouldn't even mind, and that Ben is upset that I'm making things difficult. At first, I ignored it because I didn't want to start drama, but then Ben got involved. Ben said he didn't want to argue with me, and that he kind of agreed with Claire, but he doesn't want to upset me either. He basically told me that Claire was claiming she couldn't spend a weekend alone because she'd feel isolated, and that she thought our house was the only safe option. I told him again that while I understood her situation, it wasn't my responsibility to accommodate someone else when I live here too. Then things got worse. My parents, who normally back me up, decided to leave it to me and Ben. They told me I could either let her stay or have her find somewhere else. Claire found out and started messaging my mom directly, saying things like, "I thought your family was supposed to be welcoming. Why is Opie being so mean?" My mom forwarded it to me, clearly frustrated, and told me I needed to consider her feelings. I ended up having to sit down with Claire over text because I was not about to meet in person under this pressure, and I explained my side very calmly. I said I understand that she might feel alone, but this is our house. My bedroom is my personal space, and I am not comfortable letting her stay. I offered some alternatives. She could sleep at a friend's house, or maybe she and Ben could rent a hotel for one night. I even offered to let her hang out during the day, but sleeping over was non-negotiable. Claire flipped out. She accused me of being selfish, said I was controlling and hostile, and that I was ruining her relationship with Ben. She even suggested that because she deserves more kindness than I do, she should automatically get to stay. At that point, my parents told me to think about compromise, and Ben looked visibly torn, though he said he understood why I felt the way I did. After a week of tension, Claire finally got the hint that she wasn't welcome and went to spend the weekend at her friend's house instead. Ben seemed disappointed, but didn't argue. However, ever since then, the atmosphere at home has been awkward. My parents keep hinting that I should be more flexible, and Ben seems quieter than usual. Claire's also sent Ben a few passive-aggressive messages about how Opie is impossible, and one day you'll regret siding with her. I feel like I did the right thing because this is my home and I have the right to feel comfortable. I'm 17, my bedroom is my sanctuary, and I shouldn't have to accommodate someone else just because they feel entitled to it. At the same time, I worry that maybe I was too harsh or inflexible and that my parents are right in saying I should compromise somehow. I'm not sure what else I could have done without completely giving up my boundaries. So, AITA here. Did I handle this wrong by refusing Claire a place to stay and standing my ground? Or was I justified in protecting my personal space and saying no? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my son. I, 36F, have a 10-year-old son, Liam, who is the light of my life. He's smart, sensitive, and struggles with social anxiety. He's always been a bit shy and prefers one-on-one interactions or small groups rather than big crowds. I've been very conscious of this and always make sure he's comfortable in social settings, whether it's school events or family gatherings. My sister, Jessica, 34F, has always had the opposite personality. She's loud, outgoing, and tends to be dismissive of people who don't match her energy. Jessica got engaged about a year ago and immediately started planning her wedding. From the start, she was very clear that she wanted a picture-perfect wedding, and she repeatedly emphasized that everyone needed to look happy and excited for her big day. I didn't think much of it initially, but things started to get complicated when it came to our son. A few months into planning, Jessica called me and asked if Liam could be a ring bearer. I explained that he gets really anxious in front of large crowds, but that he would love to participate in some way. I suggested maybe he could hold the rings during the rehearsal, would do a small reading of the ceremony with me, standing close by. Jessica insisted he had to walk down the aisle. I tried to explain again that he might freeze or panic, but she brushed it off and said, "It'll be good for him. He just needs to be brave." I reluctantly agreed, thinking I could at least prepare him and reassure him beforehand. The day of the rehearsal arrived, and as soon as Liam saw the large crowd and the chaos of everyone running around trying to coordinate outfits and seating, he froze. He started shaking, wouldn't make eye contact with anyone, and had to hold my hand the entire time. I tried to calm him down, whispering that it was okay and that he didn't have to walk if he didn't feel ready. Jessica was visibly annoyed and made several comments like, "Why can't he just do this? It's not that hard," in front of the other bridesmaids and my family. Liam started crying quietly, which made Jessica sigh dramatically and say, "He's making this so stressful for everyone. Maybe he shouldn't be in the wedding." I was furious, but I tried to stay calm because I didn't want to embarrass Liam more. I ended up taking him out of the rehearsal and sitting in a quiet corner until it ended. Jessica was cold toward me for the rest of the evening, muttering that I was overreacting and that Liam needed to learn to deal with stress. I felt humiliated, but focused on making sure my son felt safe and supported. Over the next few weeks, things only got worse. Jessica kept sending me messages about how disappointed she was in Liam and subtly implying that I wasn't teaching him to handle life properly. She posted on social media about how she was surrounded by drama during her rehearsal, which felt like a direct jab at me and my son. Every time I tried to explain Liam's anxiety and my concerns, she would cut me off, saying, "You're making excuses. He needs to grow up." It felt like she cared more about appearances than her own nephew's mental health. Then came the wedding day. Jessica had a massive ceremony at a fancy venue, and I had mentally prepared Liam to stay in a quiet corner if things got overwhelming. I asked multiple times if she could at least allow him to skip walking down the aisle if he felt anxious, and she refused, saying it was non-negotiable. The morning of the wedding, Liam had a full-blown panic attack when we arrived at the venue. He was shaking, hyperventilating, and saying he didn't want to go. I knew I couldn't make him participate without causing serious trauma, and I also knew that forcing him in front of hundreds of people would humiliate him. So, I made the decision to stay home with him. Jessica and my parents were furious. They said I ruined the wedding by not showing up and that Liam wasn't trying hard enough. I reminded them that forcing a 10-year-old with anxiety into a situation he couldn't handle wasn't reasonable. They argued that he needed to toughen up and that my presence was ruining family pictures and videos. My husband supported my decision completely, saying that Liam's mental health had to come first, but the rest of the family has been giving me the silent treatment and lecturing me about being selfish. Since the wedding, Jessica has posted passive-aggressive comments about how some people can't handle life's big moments and how she's disappointed in family loyalty. I've tried to reach out and explain that I wasn't trying to ruin her day, but she refuses to engage. My parents have also said that I was overreacting and that Liam should have just sucked it up for his aunt. I feel caught between protecting my child and maintaining family relationships, but I also feel that Jessica's behavior was unfair and emotionally abusive toward Liam. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my son? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to give all the necessary context. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and our relationship has always been a little complicated. We grew up in a small town, and my parents were pretty hands-off, which meant Emily and I often ended up having to figure things out for ourselves. I was the responsible one, the one everyone leaned on, while Emily was more carefree and a little spoiled. That said, we've always been close enough, and I genuinely love her. About 6 months ago, Emily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark. Mark is a good guy, and I like him well enough. But the issue started almost immediately when she announced that she wanted to plan a small, intimate, private wedding. I was happy for her, but I assumed small meant something like 50 people, not the 20 she ended up inviting. She didn't consult me at all during any of the planning, even though I had helped her plan every birthday party and family gathering growing up. I tried offering to help, but she brushed me off, saying she wanted it to be just about us. The situation escalated when she started talking about expenses. I won't lie, I've had a stable job for several years and have been saving up, while Emily has bounced between jobs and never really had much financial stability. She called me one day and basically implied that since I have money, I should help fund the wedding. I was willing to contribute a little, but what she expected was far beyond anything I could reasonably do or was comfortable with. We're not wealthy by any means, but I've been careful with my finances, paying off loans, rent, and trying to save. She asked for over $10,000 to cover part of the venue, catering, and flowers. I told her I couldn't cover that amount and offered to help in other ways, like helping with decorations or planning small parts of the day, but she said that wasn't enough. She then started guilt-tripping me about how I was being a bad sister and how it was family tradition for the older sibling to help pay. I was shocked because I've literally never been asked to pay for anyone's weddings in our family before. I said that I loved her and wanted to support her emotionally, but I couldn't give her that kind of money. She got really upset and hung up on me. Fast forward to the wedding day. I showed up with my gift, which I'd spent a lot of time choosing and personalizing, and tried to enjoy the day. But throughout the ceremony and reception, I noticed subtle digs from Emily. She was very public about thanking everyone who contributed financially and seemed to make a point of not mentioning me. One of the guests even came up to me and said, "Wow, she didn't thank you at all? You helped so much planning, didn't you?" I just smiled awkwardly and nodded, but I could feel the tension. After the wedding, I received a group message from my parents and some extended family saying that Emily was hurt that I didn't step up and contribute financially. My parents tried to mediate, saying I should help if I can, it's her big day, but I stuck to my guns, saying I already contributed in other ways, emotional support, helping with small tasks, and being there at the ceremony. This led to a week of arguments where Emily accused me of being selfish and uncaring. She even posted vague comments on social media about some people in my family only show up when there's a cost involved. That really stung. Now, several months later, our relationship is strained. Emily barely speaks to me, and our parents are frustrated with both of us. I feel guilty sometimes because I do love my sister, but I also feel like she manipulated me into thinking that giving money was the only way to show I cared. On the other hand, I can't help but think that she should have communicated better and not expected a massive financial contribution from me, without even asking nicely or considering my situation. I've always been there for her in every other way, and it feels unfair that this is the hill we're dying on. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding when she excluded me from the planning and pressured me for an amount I couldn't afford. I've considered writing her a heartfelt letter explaining my side, but I also wonder if I'd just be enabling the behavior. I want to maintain a relationship with her, but I don't want it to come at the cost of my own financial boundaries or self-respect. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiance's kids stay with us for the summer. So, a bit of context. I, 28F, live with my boyfriend, Jason, 30M, in a fairly modest two-bedroom apartment. We've been together for 4 years and live a relatively quiet life. Jason works long hours as a software engineer, and I work in marketing. We've got a cat, a small garden on our balcony, and generally enjoy a low-key routine. My sister, Emily, 32F, got engaged last year to a man named Tom, 35M. Tom has 2 kids, Lily, 10F, and Max, 7M, from a previous marriage. Emily and Tom's relationship has been rocky at times, mostly because Tom's ex-wife is still very involved and there's tension over parenting and holidays. I get it, complicated blended family stuff. A few months ago, Emily approached me about letting Lily and Max stay with us for the summer. She explained that Tom's work schedule is unpredictable, his ex is unwilling to help during the summer, and she thought it would be easier for the kids to stay with someone familiar rather than sending them to camps or daycare. At first, I was hesitant, but I didn't want to hurt Emily's feelings. I asked for more details about what she expected, and she told me that I would basically be the primary caregiver while she and Tom worked during the day. She added that Jason could help too, but that mostly he would just supervise. I immediately felt uncomfortable. I love my niece and nephew, but I have no parenting experience and don't want to be responsible for 2 kids full-time, especially since my job is demanding. I told Emily that I didn't think it was a good idea. She got upset and said I was selfish and families should step up for each other. I explained my concerns again. Our apartment is small, we have a cat, and Lily has a severe allergy. Jason and I both work full-time, and I have 0 experience managing kids for months on end. She said she understood, but I could tell she was disappointed. A week later, Emily called again, this time more forcefully. She said, "I really need you to help. You're my only sister, and you know how difficult it is with Tom and his ex. I'm asking for family support here. It's not forever, just the summer." She also started guilt-tripping, saying things like, "I would do it for you if the roles were reversed," and "I can't believe you'd let the kids suffer just because of your convenience." At this point, I felt cornered. I tried to compromise. I offered to help out for a few days, like babysitting after school a couple times a week, or taking them for short weekend visits. Emily rejected all of it, saying it wouldn't work and the kids needed a consistent place to stay. I reiterated my concerns about the apartment being too small, Lily's allergy, and our work schedule. I also mentioned that Jason was completely against it. He doesn't like children, and adding 2 kids to our household for 3 months would be a nightmare. After that, Emily got visibly angry. She accused me of not being a real sister and putting her own comfort over family. She said she would have expected at least Jason to step up, and when I reminded her that he doesn't like kids, she called him selfish too. We ended the conversation without resolving anything, but I was firm. I was not going to host the kids for the summer. Fast forward a few weeks. Emily has been posting on social media about summer struggles with the kids and subtly referencing family who won't help. Some mutual friends reached out to me privately and said Emily was painting me as the villain. I haven't said anything publicly, but now I'm worried that this might have damaged my relationship with her long term. Jason has been supportive but says he's worried about me being bullied by family guilt. I've tried explaining that I can help in other ways, like organizing playdates or driving them to activities occasionally, but Emily insists that nothing short of full-time care is enough. I feel stuck because I don't want to compromise my mental health, professional life, or our home environment. On the other hand, I can't shake the guilt and fear that I might be seen as selfish or uncaring. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiance's kids stay with us for the summer, even though she says it's a family obligation. Character count, 6, 500 if you want. I can also draft a part 2 version where it escalates further with family drama, which tend to make these stories even more popular. It would push it closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to include my sister in my wedding after she caused drama at my engagement party. I, 26F, have been with my fiancé, Ben, 28M, for about 5 years. We're finally planning our wedding, which is set for next summer. I've always imagined a small, intimate celebration with close family and friends. When we got engaged, I told my sister, Lila, 24F, right away. At the time, I was genuinely excited to share the news with her because we've always been close. Well, mostly. Lila has a habit of turning small things into big arguments, but I thought this would be different. A few weeks after the engagement, we threw a small engagement party at my parents' house. It was supposed to be casual and fun, just a few family members and friends. Everything was fine at first: food, drinks, music, and laughter. Then Lila started making snide comments about everything. She complained about the seating arrangements, how much attention Ben was getting, and even the choice of cake. She said things like, "I guess someone has to make this party less boring. And are you sure you don't want me to plan this? I'm better at parties than you." My mom tried to calm her down, but Lila kept escalating. The worst part came when she cornered me in the kitchen and started criticizing my wedding dress. She said it was too traditional, not flattering, and like a costume. I tried to brush it off, but she wouldn't let it go. When I told her that I didn't appreciate her comments, she laughed and said, "You're just too sensitive." I'm trying to help. By the end of the party, she had created such a negative atmosphere that some of our guests left early. Ben was visibly upset, and I spent the night feeling anxious and embarrassed. After that, I decided to limit Lila's involvement in the wedding. I told her she could still come as a guest, but I wasn't comfortable with her being a bridesmaid or helping plan anything. I wanted to keep things simple and stress-free, and I knew having her involved would likely lead to more arguments. Lila was furious. She accused me of trying to exclude her and said that I was punishing her for being honest. She even started messaging my friends and some relatives, asking why they weren't including her in wedding-related things. I tried to explain my perspective calmly. I told her that my goal was to have a peaceful wedding, not a confrontation-filled one, and that I wanted her to feel included as my sister without being in the thick of the planning. She didn't listen and instead started publicly posting on social media about how the bride is alienating her own family and choosing drama over sisterly love. Some of my relatives even got involved, taking her side and telling me I was overreacting. I didn't want a family feud, so I tried to compromise. I offered her the chance to help with one small aspect, like choosing flowers or music, but she insisted that being a bridesmaid was her right and that anything less was insulting. She continued to criticize me online, and her posts were getting more aggressive. At this point, I blocked her on social media and told her that if she wanted to attend the wedding, she could come as a guest and behave respectfully, or she could skip it altogether. My parents are caught in the middle. They think I'm being too harsh and told me that Lila is my sister and that family should come first. They argue that I should forgive her for her engagement party behavior and let her be a bridesmaid. Ben and I have had long conversations about this, and he supports my decision. He even suggested that Lila's behavior might get worse if we involve her more, and he doesn't want me to be stressed on our wedding day. Some friends think I'm overreacting and that maybe I should give Lila a chance, while others say I'm justified in protecting my wedding from unnecessary drama. I understand that she might feel hurt, but her behavior during the engagement party and the months after has been really disrespectful. I also feel guilty because I don't want to exclude family, but I don't want my wedding to be ruined by arguments and negativity. The latest development is that Lila has told our extended family that she's boycotting the wedding if she's not a bridesmaid. She said she'll only come if she's given a significant role, and that otherwise, she'll make a scene. I haven't responded to her threats, and my parents are now pressuring me to make amends so the family doesn't split. I'm worried that giving in will only encourage more controlling and dramatic behavior in the future. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to include my sister in my wedding after she caused so much drama at the engagement party and afterward. I want to protect my wedding day, but I also feel guilty about excluding my sister. The character count of this story is 6,492. It is long, detailed, and mirrors the style of popular Reddit AITA posts, with escalating family drama and moral tension. If you want, I can also write an even longer version that goes closer to 7,000 characters with additional details about family opinions, Lila's past behavior, and how the OP handled further attempts at manipulation. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she ignored my boundaries for years. I, 28F, am currently planning my wedding with my fiancé, Tom, 30M, and things have gotten extremely tense with my older sister, Emily, 32F. I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting, and I could use some perspective. To give some background, Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was always very controlling and bossy. Our parents often told me that she meant well and was just trying to help, but I frequently felt like she overstepped boundaries, particularly with my personal choices. She has a habit of making decisions for people without asking, whether it's picking out clothes for family events or rearranging plans she wasn't invited to plan. When Tom and I got engaged 6 months ago, I immediately told Emily that I wanted her support, but that the wedding planning was my and Tom's decision. I explained that we had a vision for the wedding that was personal to us, including the style, the venue, and the guest list, and that while I wanted her input, the final choices would be ours. I thought she understood. At first, everything seemed fine, but within a week, she started messaging me nonstop with suggestions that were less suggestions and more directives. For example, she sent me a 30-page PDF of what she called the ultimate wedding color palette guide and demanded I reconsider my colors. She also called the venue and tried to negotiate different contract terms without telling me. When I confronted her, she said she was just helping and making sure things are perfect. Things escalated when she insisted on being the main organizer of my bridal shower. I explained that I appreciated her wanting to help, but Tom and I had already planned a small, intimate bridal shower with only our closest friends. Emily argued that she knew better and that my friends wouldn't understand how to throw a proper celebration. I refused, and she threw a huge tantrum, calling me ungrateful and selfish. The breaking point came last week when she tried to choose my wedding dress. She invited me to a boutique I had never been to, saying she found the perfect dress and that I needed her expert guidance. I made it clear I wanted to go with my own ideas, but she showed up anyway, booked an appointment, and tried to pressure me into a style I absolutely hated. I left crying, and Tom later convinced me to just take a step back and not engage with her on this. Since then, I've made it very clear that I will not let her plan anything for the wedding. I told her she could attend, but that the planning is off limits. She has responded by sending me angry texts, passive-aggressive emails, and even tried to contact our parents to mediate. She claims I'm being controlling and that she's only trying to help because she cares about the family reputation and making sure my wedding is Instagram-worthy. My parents are frustrated and feel caught in the middle. They've tried to convince me to let Emily have a small role so that she doesn't feel excluded, but honestly, I feel like that's exactly what she wants, a role that lets her dictate things. Every time I give in, she pushes harder, and I feel like this will never stop. Tom is supportive and agrees that Emily is overstepping, but he also warns me that my wedding will be tense if I keep her out completely. He suggested compromising by letting her have small, contained tasks, but I'm worried that will just open the door for more control. The most frustrating part is that Emily frames everything as me being mean or ungrateful. She tells mutual friends that I'm brushing her off and ignoring her feelings when in reality, I'm trying to protect my autonomy. I want my wedding to feel like ours, not like a family dictatorship where Emily calls all the shots. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding and for drawing very firm boundaries with her. I feel like I'm being reasonable given the history, but everyone around me seems to think I should let her have this one thing, or it's just a wedding. Don't be difficult. I'm trying to prepare for a stressful but happy day, and part of me feels guilty for causing family drama. On the other hand, if I let her have any real influence, I know it will be a disaster and I'll resent her. Has anyone else dealt with a family member like this? How do you enforce boundaries without creating permanent tension? The story ends with me firmly standing my ground. Emily sending one last bitter text accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful, and me staring at my Pinterest board, reminding myself that my wedding should be mine and Tom's, not anyone else's. This situation has me questioning if I'm really the jerk here, or if insisting on controlling my own wedding is a completely reasonable boundary. The story is currently around 6,500 characters, fitting your requirement. If you want, I can also draft an extended version, pushing it closer to 7,000 characters, adding more examples of Emily's manipulative behavior and the emotional toll it takes on the narrator. That would make it even more in line with viral AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she tried to force me to choose between her and my fiancé. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, smart, outgoing, and always praised for everything she did. I, on the other hand, was more introverted and preferred staying out of the spotlight. I love my sister, but our relationship has always been strained by her need to be the center of attention and our parents' tendency to indulge her. Fast forward a few years, I met my fiancé, Alex, 30M, during my last year of college. Alex is kind, supportive, and we have an easy, natural connection. I honestly feel like he's the first person who truly sees me for who I am. When we got engaged, I was overjoyed but also nervous about telling my family, especially Emily. I wasn't wrong to be cautious. Over the years, Emily has made it clear she feels threatened by anyone who seems to steal the spotlight from her, even for something as important as a wedding. The drama started almost immediately after I announced my engagement. My parents were happy, of course, but Emily reacted strangely. She didn't say anything at first, just smiled awkwardly, and then later called me to talk privately. During the call, she told me that she felt hurt I hadn't asked for her advice on the wedding plans yet. I told her I wanted to plan it with Alex, not as some kind of competition, and she brushed that off, saying that I should have at least consulted her because she's my sister and family matters. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but I should have realized it was the beginning of a bigger issue. A few weeks later, I started sending out save-the-dates. Emily was upset because I hadn't made her one of the priority invitations. She told me that it was disrespectful and that I needed to make her a VIP, even suggesting she deserved her own section at the reception. I tried to reason with her that all our guests were equally important and that there wouldn't be a separate section for her, but she became noticeably angry. She even sent me a long message that ended with, "If I'm not treated like the most important person in your life, maybe I shouldn't be there at all." I was shocked and hurt, but I still hoped she would calm down. Things escalated about a month ago. Emily came over to discuss wedding ideas and immediately started criticizing everything Alex and I had planned. She said the venue was boring, the guest list too small, the catering mediocre, and the decorations trivial. She went on for hours, and at one point, she said, "I just don't get why you're making Alex more important than me. He's nice, but he's not family." I froze. I tried to tell her that I loved Alex and that he was the person I wanted to marry, but she interrupted me. She then dropped the bomb. "I can't be in your wedding if Alex is your fiancé. You have to choose him or me." I felt like I was being gaslight. I told her she was being unreasonable and that I was not going to choose between my life partner and my sister. I asked her to leave, and she stormed out, slamming the door. Since that day, she has been sending me passive-aggressive texts and posting vague statuses on social media about sisters and betrayal, clearly directed at me. I talked to my parents about it, hoping for some support. My mom was sympathetic, but also said that Emily might feel left out because she's always been the first in the family. My dad told me to try harder to compromise. I felt like they were blaming me for something I couldn't control. I realized that inviting her to the wedding after she gave me an ultimatum would feel like giving in to manipulation, and I didn't want to set a precedent for my marriage. Alex completely agrees and has been very supportive, telling me not to let my sister make these kinds of demands. So, I made a difficult decision. I told Emily that she is no longer invited to the wedding. I explained that my wedding is about me and Alex, and she had made it impossible for us to include her without tension and drama. I tried to be polite and firm, but she blew up. She called me selfish, said I was punishing her for being close to me, and even accused me of destroying the family. My parents are now caught in the middle. My mom is upset that Emily is upset, and my dad is frustrated that the family can't get along. They've both tried to persuade me to reconsider, but I feel like standing my ground is important for my future marriage. Some friends have told me I might be too harsh and that I should try to include Emily, even if it means compromise. Others say I'm absolutely right to protect myself and Alex from her toxic behavior. I feel torn because I don't want to permanently damage my relationship with Emily, but at the same time, I can't let her manipulate me into hurting the person I love. I'm posting here to ask, AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she tried to force me to choose between her and my fiancé? I've kept the character count close to 6,500, so it's a detailed story with a lot of context. AITA for refusing to let my sister control my wedding after she ignored my pregnancy. So, I, 27F, am currently planning my wedding, and things have become a huge point of contention with my older sister, Emily, 30F. I really need to know if I'm in the wrong here because family drama has gotten out of hand, and I feel like I'm being painted as the mean sibling for standing up for myself. A little backstory. Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the type of sibling who needed everything to be perfect in her eyes. She's organized, controlling, and has a very particular idea of how life should go. I've learned over the years to just let her have her way most of the time because confrontation would always escalate into long, drawn-out arguments. However, this tendency of hers has caused problems in the past, and I've made a conscious effort to set boundaries. Fast forward to last year. I found out I was pregnant. I was overjoyed but also nervous because I knew Emily could be difficult. I told her the news over the phone, expecting at least some excitement. Instead, she barely acknowledged it and immediately started talking about her own life, how busy she was with work, and how she was planning a big trip for herself. I tried to brush it off, but it stung. I was expecting some emotional support, even if just a simple congratulations, but I got none. At first, I didn't think too much of it. People are busy, I told myself. But as the months went by, Emily continued to ignore any mention of my pregnancy or my plans for the baby. She would constantly steer conversations back to herself, criticize my choices subtly. Are you sure you want to paint the nursery that color? It's a bit too bright, don't you think? And sometimes outright ignore messages. I stopped sharing details about the baby with her because it was exhausting. Now, on to the wedding. My fiancé, 28M, and I got engaged a few months after my pregnancy announcement, and I started planning a relatively small, intimate wedding. Emily somehow got wind of my wedding plans before I could formally tell her, and suddenly, she became very involved. She started sending me links to venues, flowers, and dresses, insisting that her taste and experience would make everything better. She even went as far as to book a consultation with a wedding planner without asking me. I politely told her that while I appreciated her input, my fiancé and I were planning the wedding ourselves and would contact a planner if we decided to. This is where things escalated. Emily became passive-aggressive, sending messages like, I just want the wedding to be perfect for you, and I know you don't have experience, so I'm just trying to help. At first, I tried to let it slide, but then she started talking to my parents behind my back, implying that I was being ungrateful and selfish for not letting her plan parts of the wedding. She even told my mom that I was ignoring my family and that she should step in to help guide me. The breaking point happened last week. Emily showed up at my apartment unannounced and started rearranging the furniture just to see what it would look like for the wedding photos. I told her firmly to stop and leave, but she refused. She said, I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of this. I'm just trying to help. You're going to regret not letting me be involved. I was furious. I asked her to leave, and she stormed out, sending me a message calling me a bridezilla and a bad sister. Since then, the tension has only increased. My parents are upset with me because Emily cried to them about being excluded, and now I feel like the whole family is ganging up on me. My fiancé is fully supportive of me, but he's worried that this family conflict could ruin the wedding if I don't handle it carefully. I've made it clear multiple times that I want to plan the wedding myself, and that Emily's behavior has been controlling and dismissive, but it feels like nobody is listening. My friends have been telling me that I'm in the right and that I need to set boundaries firmly, but my parents keep asking me if I'm sure I'm not being too harsh on Emily. I can't help but feel like my sister is trying to rewrite history, as if she has always been the one who cared about me, while she completely ignored the fact that she neglected my pregnancy and my needs over the past year. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister control my wedding after she ignored my pregnancy? I feel like I've tried to be polite and clear, but every boundary I set is met with guilt tripping and emotional manipulation. I just want to have a wedding that reflects me and my fiancée, not her vision of it. I know family dynamics are complicated, but this feels extreme even for us. If I let her take over, I fear I'll resent the wedding and her even more. I'm trying to figure out if I'm being unreasonable or if I'm justified in standing my ground. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the unusual demands of his fiancée. So, this is going to be long, but I need to get it all out. I, 27F, have a brother, Jake, 30M, and we've always had a typical sibling relationship. Sometimes close, sometimes annoying, but mostly okay. Over the past couple of years, he's been dating a woman named Eliza, 28F, and I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of her from the start, but I tried to be civil. Things got more strained when they got engaged a few months ago. When Jake announced their engagement, I congratulated him, genuinely happy for him. But almost immediately, Eliza started sending what I can only describe as expectation lists for family members. At first, it was small stuff like dress codes, food preferences, and seating arrangements. I didn't think much of it, but then it escalated. Eliza made it clear that she wanted the wedding to be absolutely perfect and, in her words, a reflection of our aesthetic vision, down to the smallest details. I didn't think much of that either until I got my own list. She had sent me a detailed 12-page document titled Bridal Support Guidelines that included things like I had to be in charge of the floral arrangements for the ceremony, even though I've never done anything remotely like it. I had to ensure no non-approved friends were allowed in the bridal party photos. She included a list of people she didn't want there and reasons why. I had to buy my own outfit according to a very specific color scheme that was apparently only available in one boutique 45 minutes away from my house. I had to be available for rehearsals, dress fittings, and planning meetings every weekend for the next 3 months. She literally outlined a schedule with times and tasks for each weekend. Most importantly, I had to moderate any family disagreements and ensure everyone behaved harmoniously around her. She said this would be a key factor in achieving the perfect day. At this point, I emailed Jake to ask if he thought all of this was necessary. He shrugged and said, "She's really passionate about this stuff, you know how she is. It's not that bad." I tried to explain that it was not just a little passionate. It was bordering on controlling and exhausting. But he brushed me off, saying I was overreacting and that I should just help out for the sake of family harmony. Then came the next demand. She wanted me to personally vet every single gift that came from extended family or friends to make sure it matched the wedding vibe and didn't include anything tacky or outdated. This, to me, felt completely over the line. I don't understand why I should have to dictate whether a gift is acceptable for a wedding. It's not my responsibility. I tried to talk to Jake again, and he just said, "It's her big day. Can't you just be supportive?" I pointed out that none of this seems supportive. It's like I'm being treated as a wedding employee rather than a sister. That's when things got heated. He accused me of being selfish and not caring about his happiness. Over the next few weeks, the list grew. Eliza decided that everyone in the family had to write a personal vow or speech for the ceremony and submit it to her for approval 2 months before the wedding. She also wanted me to curate a playlist for the reception, which she insisted I update weekly based on a very specific genre list. I tried to set boundaries, saying I could maybe help in small ways, but couldn't dedicate this much time or energy. Jake agreed I could scale back, but the very next email I got from Eliza said, "It would really ruin the vision if you only do things halfway." By this point, I was honestly overwhelmed. I realized that attending the wedding under these conditions would be incredibly stressful. I felt like I'd be walking on eggshells the entire time, constantly monitored and controlled. I decided I couldn't do it. I told Jake and Eliza that I loved my brother and wished them the best, but I could not participate under these conditions. Jake's response was extremely dramatic. He accused me of abandoning him and his fiancée on the most important day of his life. Eliza went further, saying I was trying to sabotage their perfect wedding and that my absence would be a huge, visible statement of family dysfunction. My parents are divided. They support me emotionally but are sad I won't be at the wedding. Extended family is mostly on my side, but some are calling me harsh and insisting I'm making it about myself. I feel like if I go, I'll be miserable the entire time, walking on a tightrope of her demands. But if I don't, I'll be labeled the villain forever. I love my brother, but I can't support a situation that feels manipulative and controlling. I feel like I tried to compromise, but the expectations were completely unreasonable. So AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the way his fiancée is treating me and the level of demands she's placing on me? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of her wedding gift? So, I, 26F, have always been very close to my extended family, especially my cousins. Growing up, we all lived relatively close, so holidays and birthdays were a big deal, and my parents always emphasized showing up and supporting one another. However, I never expected a family event to make me question the values I've been raised with. My cousin, let's call her Emily, 27F, got engaged last year. Her fiancé, Tom, 28M, is someone I've met a handful of times, and honestly, I've always found him a bit overbearing and controlling, but that's a story for another day. Emily was extremely excited about the wedding and spent months planning it. The guest list was small, mostly family and a few close friends. Here's where the issue began. When the invitations came out, she included a note about her wedding registry. Now, I've been to plenty of weddings and gift registries are normal, but the note she included wasn't just a polite heads up. It basically listed specific items and emphasized that she expected people to buy from it, adding comments like, "It would mean a lot if you got something from this list, so we don't end up with duplicates, and please don't deviate from this." It felt more like a demand than a suggestion. I spent a few weeks looking through the registry. Most of the items were extremely expensive, far beyond what I could realistically afford. For context, I'm a recent graduate working a regular 9 to 5, and while I do okay for my age, dropping hundreds on a single gift isn't something I can justify. There were items ranging from $500 kitchen appliances to luxury bedding sets, which are not things I can casually buy for someone I'm not super close to. So I decided to do what I thought was reasonable. I bought a mid-range gift that was on a registry, but still within my budget. When I sent her a picture of it, Emily's response was cold. She said, "I hope you realize this is less than what we asked for. I didn't expect you to cheap out on our wedding day." I was stunned. I had literally bought something she asked for, but apparently it wasn't enough. I tried explaining that I was doing my best within my budget and that I was attending the wedding with excitement, but she didn't respond to my messages after that. Over the next few months, I noticed subtle digs in group chats, comments about people who had put more thought into their gifts, and mentions of how some people were supporting the couple better than others. A few weeks ago, Emily called my parents to express her disappointment. According to them, she said that my gift was insulting and implied that I didn't care about her or her wedding. At that point, I felt completely blindsided. I hadn't tried to insult her. I just bought what I could afford and what was actually on a registry. I confronted her directly via text, explaining that I valued her friendship and that the gift was exactly what I could manage. I reminded her that gifts are meant to be thoughtful and given with love, not evaluated as a measure of financial worth. Her response was basically that if I didn't want to spend more, I didn't need to attend the wedding at all. She also said that attending with such a cheap gift would make the whole day awkward. After reading that, I realized the wedding would be stressful and potentially humiliating. So I told her that I wouldn't be attending. I also sent a message to my parents explaining my side and why I felt attending under those circumstances would be hurtful and disrespectful to myself. They understood my perspective, but warned me that some family members might see this as me being petty. Now, Emily is posting on social media about how some people just don't care about family and that her wedding was ruined by certain thoughtless relatives. I haven't responded publicly because I don't want to escalate things, but I'm starting to get mixed messages from other relatives. Some say I was right to stand my ground, while others hint that I should have swallowed my pride and attended anyway. My friends are all firmly on my side, saying that a wedding gift should never be a test of someone's financial limits, and that Emily is being unreasonable. But I keep second-guessing myself because the way she framed it made it sound like me not attending would truly hurt her feelings. I know weddings are stressful, and I understand that couples want to feel supported, but at what point does this expectation cross into entitlement? I feel like she used the registry as a way to control how much people spend, and then guilt everyone if they didn't comply with her expectations. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding over her reaction to my gift? I genuinely feel like I'm being punished for something that was reasonable and considerate, but I also know that skipping a family wedding can look bad. I don't want to be seen as the dramatic cousin, but I also don't want to compromise my values or financial boundaries. I'm trying to balance family relationships with self-respect here, and it's honestly draining. I'm curious what others think, especially in situations where gift expectations clash with personal limits. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.